I, Arlene, take thee, Ali, to be my wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Ali Brathwaite.
And Arlene Brathwaite.
And for those of you who don't know our story, I did 21 years in prison, and Arlene did the time with me. Today, we're talking about marriage, our marriage specifically. But to get more specific, how I proposed to the love of my life.
Well, it wasn't actually a proposal. It was more like...
Well, I mean, I didn't get down on one knee or anything, but...
Yeah, you didn't even ask me to marry you. You told me that we were going to get married. There's a big difference.
Okay, ask, told, tomato, it's the same thing.
Actually, it isn't. Actually, it isn't.
Okay.
A woman waits a lifetime to be asked for her hand in marriage, and when it doesn't happen, it kind of goes against the traditional of marriage. Yeah. So when you didn't propose to me, it kind of like threw me off, I didn't... I had been waiting for that moment, and it never came. Even till this day, when I'm talking to other women about how they were proposed to, I can't even relate to it because it never happened to me. I never had that experience.
So, there's a lesson in this, fellas. Propose to your future bride. The marriage is just as important to her as it is to you. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't see anything wrong with the way I did it.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, but if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have given her her wish. But in my defense, I've tried over the years to propose to her again. But she was like, nah, it's not the same thing.
It definitely isn't the same. No, it is not.
Okay, well, before we get into how we got married, we have to understand that getting married is no easy task. We're talking about a lifelong commitment. I, Ali, take thee, Arlene, to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part. I remember those words as if it was yesterday. And we were married,
28 years.
28 years ago. My goodness. This is a lifelong contract here.
Yes, it is.
And when most couples recite these vows, they're focused on the positive attributes, the better, the richer, the health, love, and cherish.
Yes, absolutely. They don't want to think about the worst, poor, sickness, and death. And rightfully so. This is one of the happiest days of their life. Why would they want to think about that negative stuff?
Yeah, that is true. The whole family is there to witness the event, right?
Absolutely.
His side of the family, her side of the family, probably people they haven't seen in years. And even if they don't have a big wedding, just the fact that they would be wed and be together forever.
That's right.
No matter what awaited them, they would figure it out together. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, in our situation, a prison marriage is totally different. First of all, prison marriages are frowned on by many.
Yes.
People automatically assume that the person in prison is marrying so that they can use the other person for money,
packages,
or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when they get home, that they're just going to leave them.
Well, me personally, I have a problem with that piece. The piece where we talk about that the inmate may leave the person on the outside. They never consider that the person on the outside may want to leave the inmate. That never comes into play. People assume that the person who is marrying the inmate is crazy or has self-esteem issues or has been duped by the inmate. I can assure you that that was not my case at all.
Okay, see, now you said something very interesting. You said that because, of course, most people assume that when the inmate come home, his whole intention is as soon as I get out, I'm gone. I'm not with her in no shape or form. But here it is, you're showing a scenario where when the inmate gets home, the wife is actually the one that leaves. So what are some reasons why the wife would want to leave the inmate when he gets home?
The wife would want, because this played over in my mind many times, right? In a prison situation, when you're going into the prison, the inmate is usually going to be on their best behavior. Okay? They don't want you to leave.
Yeah, okay.
So in your mind, okay, I know this is happening. This is a long honeymoon here. Okay? And when that person gets home, you're going to be living with a person that you've never lived with before, more than likely. And even if you did, they've changed over the years because now they live in a whole different environment, right? So now they're coming out into your environment and you got to make it work under one roof. So therefore, what if I can't do this? I may want to leave. So it's not always the inmate. Absolutely not. You know, and it's just, you know, the way I feel, and those thoughts have always been in my mind, but yet people approach me like, what if he leaves you? Nah. What if I leave him?
I mean, yeah, that's true. You are 100%.
Yes.
And we've witnessed situations like that.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, inmates would come home and things wouldn't work out between him and his wife because, like you said, in prison, he was on his best behavior. You know, telling him how much he loves her, he can't live without her, he'll die for all this other type stuff, writing letters every day. And then when he gets home, like you said, that honeymoon phase is now over because you're living with this person, you're seeing this person 24 hours of the day. So now their little, you know, pet peeves start to come up or their idiosyncrasies start to happen. And then you realize that, and it's sad to say that when he was in prison, your relationship worked.
Yes. You know, I can remember when I was told that I had to call the superintendent of the prison and ask for permission to marry you. That really felt crazy to me. And when I called, he tried to talk me out of it. And every prison official I spoke to after that pretty much did the same thing. They was trying to talk me out of marrying you. Remember when we were getting the marriage license and the counselor asked me if I knew why you were in prison?
Yeah.
And I said yes. And then she looked over at you and said, do I have your permission to tell her? I'm like, really?
Yeah. And I said, yeah. I said, yes. I don't have anything to hide.
She started reading off your offenses and the multiple sentences that you had. And all I could hear was life, life, life. It was throwing me the hell off. I knew you had life, but the way she was saying it, it just made it sound like you were never coming home. And I can't do never coming home.
Yeah. And I remember when she left and you looked over at me and you was like, yo, what's up with all this life shit? Like I never told you I had life.
The difference between how you told me and how the counselor told me was totally different. You gave the short version of your crimes and sentence. She gave me the detailed, leave no rock unturned version.
Yes, she did.
That shit threw me off.
Yes, she did. She made me sound like I was this public enemy #1 and he's in prison for the rest of his life and is never coming home type stuff. And you know, I can't blame the counselor for being thorough because she was only looking out for your best interest. And you know, to keep it real, I knew guys who wouldn't tell their girlfriends at the time how much time they really had or what crimes they really committed because they didn't want them to judge them.
I understand.
So, back to how we got married. Like Arlene said, she had to ask the superintendent for permission. Once he signed off, we had a meeting with the counselor. And once the counselor told Arlene my crimes and sentences, a date was set for us.
Yes. I can remember, you know, me going to my mother and us shopping together for my wedding attire. You know, I can remember that stuff as it was yesterday, us going to the mall, and it wasn't a thing where you had the white gown and you're going to David's bridal. Absolutely not. you're going to wear a dress of some sort or whatever attire you want to wear. In my situation, I chose a nice lace green dress with the purse to match and the shoes. Everything was in sequence because this was my special wedding day, my prison wedding day, which is totally different from a typical wedding.
Why did you pick green for your dress?
I picked green because when my mother and I were shopping, that dress stood out. Not because I liked the color, but it stood out. It was a beautiful dress. It was very different. It had a nice lining, and it had embroidery on it that were raised green designs. And if I couldn't have a typical white wedding gown or a cream wedding gown, that was going to be it, because it was a dress that, I would never forget the details that were made into that dress, and I'll never forget it. And at the time, I can remember that you could only have one witness. And the one witness for me was my friend, Sandy. She was always there for me. She was just excited about my wedding as I was, because she knew my husband as well. And needless to say, my friend Sandy wore all white. It was in the reverse. I wore green and Sandy wore white. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that day. I mean, yeah, so for me, as far as shopping for my attire, it wasn't hard at all, state greens, because that's all we were allowed to wear. But I was allowed to wear a shirt that you bought for me. So yeah, from the pants down, I was in state greens, but from the waist up, I had on the shirt that you bought for me. And I was also able to bring one witness, which I chose a role model who I looked up to while I was in prison, an old timer. And I chose him as my witness because him and I were really close friends. So, we didn't have the typical wedding. It wasn't your family on one side, my family on the other side. Everybody's happy. We got the kids running around. We got the bridal party and the groom party, the best man.
But, it was still very special for me.
Me too, most definitely.
Back then, the atypical wedding never crossed my mind, because my main concern was that we have our wedding. We are happy. We accepted our situation, and it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of this bad situation, because at the end of the day, we were committing to our relationship. We loved each other, and so nothing else mattered.
And that's the way I looked at it as well. I looked at it as one of those weddings, how when you go to City Hall and, it's just you, the person, and y'all have a witness, maybe a witness apiece. So that's how I seen it as well. It was like, okay, we don't have the big fancy wedding, but nonetheless, this wedding is going to be legal, number one.
Absolutely.
And number two, we're going to be seen as husband and wife.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's the way I looked at it. And as special as the day was, I remember me when I was coming down to the visiting room, I'm like, okay, this is going to be our special day. You know what I mean? I'm going to come down, I'm going to see you, and it's like, okay,
it's
we're
about
gonna get
us.
married. Exactly. And then, when I got down to the visiting room, I realized that on that day, we were not the only ones getting married.
Nah, we were one of many.
One of, when you say many, I'm talking, it was many. I'm like, wait a minute.
Felt like we were in Las Vegas somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I'm like, man, what's going on here? And I mean, they was bringing them in and they was, putting them out. It was almost like a turnstile type of thing.
Crazy.
You know what I mean? So I remember you and I, we was sitting there, we was holding each other's hands, we was talking, and I can remember the CEO saying next, and then the couple would get up and they'll walk in, then we'll have to move down a seat. And then I remember as we were getting kind of closer, I remember you was getting nervous, remember?
Yeah, I was definitely getting nervous. I remember my palms sweating and all.
Yeah,
Getting cold feet.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember you was like, I think I'm going to be sick.
Yes.
I was like, oh no,
Yes.
she's gonna back out on me. What's going on? I was trying to calm her down. I was trying to soothe her, like, listen, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. But I mean, I ain't gonna front. I was kind of nervous too because, like we said earlier, this is a lifelong commitment. You know what I mean? You know, you're just not gonna, get into this and be like, okay, I think anyone who gets married, they feel those jitters.
Yes.
They feel those butterflies in their stomach because they know how important this is, especially if you're a God-fearing person.
Yes.
You know that you're going to treat these vows the way they're supposed to be treated. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's fast forward to them calling us in. They called us in, and Arlene and I was standing before the official. And it was like before we knew what was happening, it was over.
It was over.
The CO was like, okay,
like 5
next.
minutes.
Yeah, the CO was like, next. It was like, oh, man.
What just happened?
Exactly. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know how you get to clap and, the family and all. It was just like, okay, next. So, we walked out the room and it was like, okay, yeah. So it was official. Mm-hmm. We were married, husband and wife. And then, of course, we didn't have the typical reception.
Absolutely not.
Actually,
we did have a reception. We had the visiting room, right? And the visitors were kind of like our guests at our reception.
Yeah, exactly.
And the vending machines were our food. It wasn't catered, but we had food. So,
exactly. So
we definitely didn't have a typical reception.
Nope, that was our reception.
Yeah.
So, and
full of strangers, right?
Yes, exactly. And we didn't have a honeymoon. Not at that time.
No,
anyway,
we didn't.
Right? We had to wait a year before we
consummate our marriage.
Yeah. And, for those of you who don't know, the Department of Corrections has a family reunion program. And basically what it is your families are allowed to come in and spend some time with you for about 36 hours, somewhere around there. So it's about a day and a half, something like that, where they can come in and spend some time with you. And we had to wait a year before we were able to do that. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not going to lie. That first family reunion visit that we had, I felt like I went home. I
would try to make it very special for him. I didn't want it to have the atypical coming together. Even though we always had linen there, they supplied that. They supplied pots and pans. They supplied the things that we needed out, but you had to bring your food. So with me, I would bring rose petals. I would bring floating candles and oil, special linen, whether it was silk sheets or whatever. I mean, quilts, everything. I brought everything down to the dishcloths. Special, or I would bring his favorite foods, whether I had to go get Caribbean style food, I would purchase it the night before and bring it because I wanted to make it very special. And that is what I did the whole time. Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. Like I said, I felt like that was my first taste of freedom before I was actually released from prison. Because I remember when we got into the van, the CO, when I say us, I'm talking about the inmates. The inmates would arrive there before the visitors. So I remember when the CO would put us in the van and we would go up to the family reunion site. And even though it was on the other side of the prison, I felt like I was going home. I felt, because we were driving away from like that dreary prison. And when he went up that hill, and the first time I seen the modular homes that we were going to stay in, I'm like, wow, they actually look like real homes. When you hear the term in prison trailer visit, you're thinking of one of those trailers that you're gonna go up into and all that. But they looked like townhouses in a way.
Yes, they did.
And I remember when the CO dropped us off, and he went down to go get Arlene and the rest of the family. Me and the inmates, we were kind of just, there was 3 other ones because it was 4 homes altogether. We were just like smiling at each other, and we was like, yo, we can't believe this is crazy right here. And I knew we had about 10 minutes before they would bring up the family. So we each went into our modular home, and I walked in, I'm looking around, I'm like, yo, this looks like a real house. And I kind of, cleaned up a little bit. you know, because of course I wanted to make it as special as I could. So, you know, I kind of cleaned up a little bit, made sure like, you know, like the bathroom area was really clean, made sure that the bedroom was clean and stuff like that. And I remember when I got a call from the CEO from the tower, and he was like, your visitors are here. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I go outside and I see the van pulling up. And then when Arlene stepped out, it was just so surreal. I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And I remember grabbing her bags. I remember grabbing the food and stuff that she bought. And when we got into the home and I closed the door, it was like, I felt like it was like we were soundproof, like everything, nothing existed but what was inside.
That's right.
Exactly, except what was inside that home there. And I remember hugging her, and I said, I can't believe I'm actually hugging her without COs looking at me. You know, it was like we were by ourselves. We were secluded, so to speak. And, you know, I remember us, you know, like she said, making up the bed and all that. I remember making the bed up with her and all of that.
Yes,
putting the food in the refrigerator.
Yes. He used to help me.
I still help you from time to time.
Absolutely. Do not do that. He does not do that.
Little bit here
but
and there.
when I came on those trailers, he helped me cook. He would help me clean. He would even help me fold the clothes and pack them back in a suitcase, make the bed. That doesn't happen now.
I still do that.
It doesn't happen now. It doesn't happen now. But I know that if he had to, he could.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I mean,
it was very special time for us.
Yes, it was. And I think one advantage that we had over people who get married in the street is that every family reunion visit we had, which they were like, what, every 3 months at the time?
Every 45 days.
Yeah. No, not at Greenhaven.
Oh, we were at Greenhaven.
Yeah,
okay, Greenhaven, that was every 90 days.
Yeah. So it was like every family reunion we had was like a honeymoon for us.
Yes, it was.
And we were there in that program for 5 years. So it was, we literally had a 5-year honeymoon. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's something that I would never forget.
Neither will I.
But then it happened.
Yes.
We were hit with one of life's most trying
test of time, test of our love.
Yes, and I believe this was the first test of our love. I wound up going to the box. And for those of you who don't know what the box is, that's a special housing unit where the inmate is locked down 23/7, because they give you an hour a day to, you know, go to the yard, which you're still in a cage by yourself. So to me, you know, you're still locked down. So basically you're locked down 24/7 in a special housing unit. And the reason why I went there, just a little backstory, I was involved in a riot in prison, and everybody who was involved in a riot, they locked us down. They came and they transferred us all out of the facility. And me personally, I went to downstate, and, you know, to await the hearing. And when I was down there, it was a very stressful time, because I don't know what was going to happen with me and Arlene, because our little honeymoon phase
was over.
It was over. You know what I mean? So now we're in prison for real. You see what I'm saying? And she was stressed out because the people who were involved in a riot, they were
getting like up to 7 years in the box. And so all I can think of, you know, he's going to get 7 years in a box facility that I have never been to. So I didn't know what to expect from this. I just knew it was bad.
Most definitely. And it's true. I was stressing too. I'm like, damn, they gave such and such 5 years. They gave such and such 7 years. And I would see some of them coming back from their hearing. They'll look at me like,
it's not good.
5 years, man.
Not good.
And then when they told me who the person was that was giving them all that time, he was known for giving inmates crazy time for no reason. I'm like, damn, I know I'm done. I'm finished. Because I was one of the ones who started the riot. So I said, I know I'm done. And when I went to the hearing, luckily, I wound up only getting 2 years. He gave me 2 years. as much as the person who came to testify at my hearing tried to get me more time, the individual only gave me 2 years. And, you know, one thing that sticks out to me at that hearing was that when the individual who was conducting the hearing was talking to the individual who came to, you know, one of the employees from the Department of Corrections, we'll put it like that. He came to testify to make sure that I got as much time as I could. I remember sitting outside after he gave me my 2 years. I had to wait for a CO to come and escort me back, you know, to my cell. And they didn't know that I was still sitting out there. But then they started talking about the individuals who came in there and they gave them all that time. And I mean, they was going in, they was laughing, they was cracking jokes. And then they started talking about me and, you know, how he thought he was this, he thought he was that. Let's see what he does with this. And, you know, they was really going in. And I remember there was a CO sitting right outside the door, a black woman. And all she could do was look at me and just shake her head because she knew what was happening. Mm-hmm. She knew we were getting railroaded. We were getting a whole lot of time for nothing. And I remember her looking at me and she said, when you appeal this, make sure you ask for your hearing tapes. And of course, at the time, I didn't know what she meant. I was just like, you know, okay, because I was still too dazed with I got 2 years in the box. Now I got to tell Arlene this. We're going to be in the box for 2 years. So I just looked at her and said, okay, no problem. And then I remember going back to the cell. I told Arlene how much time I had. And like I said, that really tested our love because from that box facility downstate, they shipped me to
Southport.
A real box.
Box.
I thought I was in a box.
Box.
In downstate. That was a box.
Definitely
within a box.
A test of our love. I can remember as if it was yesterday. Now keep in mind, I don't know anything about box facility. I've never done prison other than with my husband, period. So this is all new to me, right? When we started this, I didn't even have a license, I don't believe, or I just got my license. I have never driven in the mountains, not this far. This was at least 5 or 6 hours from me. And it was in the mountains, I believe 30 minutes from the Canadian border. And I had to do this travel, but I loved my husband, you know, and I wanted to make sure he was good. So I travel. I got to go see him. When I got the word, all I cared about was he okay, because he had told me how they ruined all his stuff in transport. Oh, yeah. They ruined his stuff. They put laundry detergent mixed with baby oil to make sure he had no belongings left. So this really angered me, but I wanted to make sure he was okay because there's a lot of things that they don't talk about over the phone line because it's recorded. It could be, you know, we didn't want that. So I needed to go to him immediately to make sure he was good. So what I do is I'm going to travel. You know, when you got that adrenaline running, you don't care about nothing. You're going to take that travel, and I was good with it because I didn't think about the ride until it was on the way. I was on my way home, and then I thought about the going 6 hours. It didn't come into play on my way there. So I get there, I take this long travel. First I tell my mom I'm going. I get up there and I drive there, and I finally make it to this facility. Pull in the parking lot, I get a flat tire, right? But I'm not gonna worry. Well, actually, the flat I didn't even realize until I left, I believe. I go into the facility, everything was cool. They tell me, you can't see him today. You have to come back tomorrow. I just traveled 6 hours. Are you serious right now? So I had to go back in my car crying, call my mom, and said, Ma, I gotta get a hotel. And I noticed that I had a flat tire. So I had to travel 6 hours. I had a flat tire, right? And I had to call Mom to get me a reservation in a hotel.
In that area.
In that area where prejudice was at 100%. You know what I mean? Like, it's no winds for me up in these cold ass mountains, right? So what I did was a CO see me sitting there, and he actually changed my flat for me. Very surprised that happened, but he was very helpful and he changed my flat.
Not all COs are bad.
Not all COs are bad. You know, he changed my flat. Mom got me in a hotel and I was good. I was going to wait it out and I was going to see my husband and make sure he was all right before I returned home. I refused for them to turn me around. You know what I mean? Those COs, they could have let me in. You know what I mean? But they refused to let me in, right?
Because they said what? They said I can only get a visit
once a week. And I had visited him downstate
that Saturday.
Last
Saturday, right? Last Saturday, you had visited me in downstate.
Absolutely.
And then you came this Saturday. Well, what was it?
It was Sunday, I believe.
Sunday. No, you came Saturday.
Saturday, right.
But they said you had to come the following day, Sunday.
Sunday,
you would
right.
have been able to come see me. Some crazy nonsense.
So anyway, I finally get in. I'm able to get into this visit. No one or anyone could have prepared me for what I was going to see. When I walked in, I remember everything being a dull yellow, right? There were cages everywhere. Cages, like a dog kennel, cages. So I said to myself, just keep going because you need to be strong for him. You know, you don't need him to see you break down because he's going through enough. And as I walked through to the number of the cage that they told me to go to, all I could hear was a lot of talking going on, a lot, right? And there was this nasty stench. I could smell it. It was making me sick. When I finally made it around to where I was supposed to see our cage, I noticed that there was a lot of lipstick marks all over the bars. And I remember saying to myself, who in the hell is going to put their mouth on here to kiss anybody goodbye? Not I. So I said, okay, get it together while you wait for him to come down and go get him something to drink. So I go over and what do they have? A fountain drinks. Like really in a prison fountain? So I grabbed the cup. I said, you know what? He's going to be thirsty. He's going to be hungry. It's been days that I haven't seen him. So I go and I get the cup, get the whatever I got, the juice or soda, whatever it was for him to drink. And I sat down. And when I sat down in the chair, I noticed that there was like a bar, like the old bank teller's booth where you have a cage, like you have bars and you have a little opening a slot at the bottom. Yeah. So I'm like, well, how am I going to give him the drink? Well, I'm not going to concern myself with that right now. I just want to make sure he's good. He comes down and I do everything in my power to keep from crying. They have him shackled at the waist, right? His hands are shackled, his feet are shackled, right? And they make him come out the door backwards. I don't know what the reasoning is for that, but they made him come out backwards, right? And he sits down and he's chained to, the chair's changed to the floor. So, okay, now we're in this crazy situation where he's chained like an animal.
And I remember Arlene, when the CO left, she said, so when are they going to take the chains off? And I said, they're not going to take the chains off. This is it.
This is it. And I kept saying to myself, how many years? This can't be happening to us. This cannot be happening. So, I kept back the tears and I said, are you thirsty? He said, yes. Remember, there's just a little opening in the bottom. There's no straws. So I had to squeeze the cup and he had to bend down and I had to almost like pour it into his mouth. Let that marinate for a minute. Pour it into his mouth. It was spilling and stuff. So I set the cup aside and let's talk. You know what I mean? Let's talk because I'm about to break down in here. And I know he could see it in my face. I did start crying, I think. I did start crying at some point. The tears, I just could not control it. And it wasn't a boohoo cry. It just was, the tears running because I just couldn't believe this situation.
Like, how could this
be happening to a human being?
How can this be legal for them to do this type of stuff?
How?
But, yeah.
But this happened to us, right? And at the end of the visit, I stood up. I looked around for a space where I can kiss him goodbye. And I leaned into those nasty bars and I kissed him goodbye.
That's love. Love will make you do
some crazy stuff, man.
But
things that I thought I would never do.
But there, believe it or not, is a semi-happy ending to this story. Because remember when the CEO told me, she said, make sure when you do your appeal, you ask for your hearing tapes. So at the time when I was doing my appeal, of course, the Department of Corrections, as slow as they are, it took approximately 5 months for my appeal to be heard. And when it was heard, the first thing they said was I had got some news. I got a letter that said that my charges have been dropped and everything has been reversed. And the reason for it is they said that they could not do my appeal because my hearing tapes were missing. So that I thought back to what she told me. Make sure you ask for your hearing tapes. So she knew what was going down. She knew what was happening.
Absolutely.
And, look at how God works.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? In that situation where I had no wins, where Arlene and I possibly was going to have to do 2 years in that type of situation, I wound up only doing 6 months. And as soon as I got that letter that, my charges were dropped and everything was reversed, like a week later, that's when I was released from there. And I wound up going to Clinton, right? I wound up going to Clinton Correctional Facility. But that was a semi-good news. I only had to do 6 months in that situation. And then we were on to our other test and trial of our love, because from there I went to Clinton Correctional Facility. And for those of you who know about Clinton, you know how trying that can be.
And that wasn't your first time at Clinton.
No, it wasn't. So, yeah. So, here we are, 28 years later.
Yes. Still married.
I'm home.
Yes.
And we're blessed.
Yes, we are. We are blessed.
Yes, we are. And every now and again, I know Arlene may think I'm crazy, but I would just out of randomly nowhere just look at her and say, baby, I'm home. And she just kind of look at me like, okay.
Yes, you sure are.
But there are some times where, even she be asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning.
He'll wake me up.
And I'll just jump on her and be like, I'm home.
You'll be like, baby, I'm home.
And we talking, I've been home for what, 11 years now? So even
almost 12, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here it is. I'm still at random times, I don't take for granted that I did make it out of
the belly of the beast.
Exactly. So I made it out of a situation where I had life at the end of my sentence, went to the board, I was hit more than once.
I believe 4 times.
More than twice. Yep, 4 times. So.
And keep in mind, each time you were hit, we had to wait 2 years.
2 years, exactly.
To go to the board again.
Exactly. So, I look at that situation and I see that we've been blessed.
Yes, we have.
And here it is. I'm home 11 years later, and we're still together. We didn't fit that stereotypical, I should say, situation where when the guy comes home, he leaves her. Or when I come home, you see what I'm really about and you leave me. We had our tests, we had our times where we got on each other's nerves.
As most people in their relationships, whether married or not,
most definitely.
You're always tested.
Most definitely.
Always.
But we've always, no matter what life threw our way, we always came together and figured it out and wind up coming out on the winning side. of the situation.
Yes. Thanks for joining us on our podcast.
And you can always go to our website, letustellyourstory.net, where you can catch up on the podcast and you can kind of see what Arlene and I are doing.
Yes, and join us on our next podcast where we will be talking about our letters from prison.
Yes. We have bags.
Bags upon bags
crates.
of letters.
Yes.
Letters.
So we want to go through them, read them a little bit, read some, little lines from them here and there, kind of reminisce.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
see y'all then.